In this session, we'll talk about the second load case. After seeing the load case number 1 here, under that we already discussed about the 5 different load case which you have to configure. Next, we'll talk about the seismic loads which is coming under the load case number 2 and how to configure that and what all points you need to consider. This is very important to understand this load case because this is going to contribute the WI and that you have to take care very carefully. So when you go for the second load case, here we have the dead loads in X, Y and Z direction, that is because of the self weight, and you have to specify the positive factor. You must not use any negative factor like the one which I have shown you in the self weight Y direction. So you can ask me why. So why we can use only the positive factor? Why we can't we use negative factor? Because here the self weight contribution is not because of the gravitational directional load, because this is the directional load in all the direction X, Y, Z. So in seismic response always we consider only the importance factor or the lump weight which you do consider in all the direction X, Y, Z. So for creating that global mass along the X, Y and Z, we use the positive direction to understand or to include the participation factor. So this is the reason why we use the positive direction other than the negative. So in X and Y and Z direction we have to add the self weight, and how to do that quickly I will show you. So when you go to the seismic load and you go to add, the self weight direction go to X and go for 1 and go for add, go to Y and again 1 and go to add, and go to Z and go to 1 and add, so that these 3 will be added. And after selecting this particular condition, you have to apply to assign to view, so that this will be applied to your view just like the Y direction, X direction and G direction. So these are the 3 fundamental self weight contribution factor which you do consider under seismic load definition or this particular title which you create, and you keep on adding those informations. Now we'll move to the other side. So here you saw the dead load in the X, Y and Z direction. Next we'll talk about the dead load contribution on your floor load except the top floor. So it was -12. So here for calculating in the direction X you have to go for 12. For calculating in the direction Y you have to go for 12. For calculating in the direction Z you have to go for 12. And here the range is 0 to 43. And for the top floor also you have to go for the direction X, Y and Z. So except the top floor we have considered here the direction X. Again here the direction Y, same 12, the direction only is changed and 0 to 43. This is the second load case for the dead load except the top floor. And again for rest of all the floor in the direction Z, this is the same factor. So here you have to apply 3 times in the 3 direction, that is you can see the 12, 12 and 12. So this particular 12 we have applied in the Y direction, this particular 12 we have applied in the X direction, and this particular 12 we have applied in the G direction. So this seismic load, when you go for add and you go for the floor load, here you have to go for 12, go for X, and here you set your range 0 to 43 because below the top floor, and go for add. Again go to the Y direction and set 0 to 43 and go for add, and again go to the G direction and 0 to 43 and go for add. So after that you will be creating this. Just like that, for the top floor you have to again apply the 10 kilonewton per meter square 3 times in the X, Y and Z direction. This is the Y range 10 without any symbol, negative or positive, Y direction, X direction which you can see here, and again for the G direction. So these contributing factors for all these 3 direction for 10 kilonewton load need to be considered along x direction 43 to 50 for your top floor, 43 to 50 again for the y direction for the top floor, and again for the g direction 10 km per meter square 43 to 50 in the g direction, because this all contributing factor will give you the seismic mass which you do consider in your response spectrum dynamic analysis as per 1893 2002 part 1 code of your IS. And after that we are going to consider the 50% of your live load contribution for all the floors. This is as per the IS guidelines, and which I would like to show you so that you can relate this why instead of 4 kN per meter square we have considered 2. So let us understand this from the IS code book. So if you go to the 25 page from your exercise folder, the IS 1893.1.2002. So here you can see the percentage of imposed load to be considered in seismic weight calculations. So up to and including 3 kN per meter square of uniform distributed floor loads, the percentage of imposed load which you are going to consider for earthquake calculation, seismic weight calculation will be 25%. But in our case, this is 4 kN live load. So above 3, you can see 50% you have to calculate. So as per this particular guideline of clause 7.3.1, you have to calculate 50% of that. So this will be 2 kN per meter square for all the floor in the direction x, in the direction y between 0 to 43, and along the direction z from 0 to 43. And also you can consider this in fact between 0 to 50 so that all the floors will be considered. So this I will show you about this 0 to 43. So what I will suggest is you go for 0 to 50 so that all will be considered, all floor. In fact for the top floor it has to be 1.5 and its 50% is 0.75. So again you can apply a contributing factor. So what I will do is I will just keep it 43, and another step we are going to add here for the top floor. Go to add, go to floor loads, and 0.75 will be 50%, 0.75 kN per meter square in x direction between 43.5 to 50. So that this will be for the top floor. Go for add, again go for the y direction, go for add, again go for the z direction, go for add. So this particular contributing factor need to be considered, and all spectral definition I will delete it. So these are the load cases, 4 different cases with the conditions. That means 12 cases for the floor load and self pull load 3. So 15 different cases need to be considered. So this 3, 12 for all the floor, the dead loads, 10 for the top floor, 2 for the live load contribution of the floor, and 0.75 for all the floors for the top floor and in the x, y and g direction. So these are the 12 cases, and these are the self weight contributing factors. And next session will understand how STAAD calculates the lateral seismic load and different points and factors which we do consider during calculating